put your hands together for him. It's so good to see you.
Thank you very much.
First of oh, thank you. Not you about to flatter me. Oh yeah, Guy.
Oh,
I think we can call him Guy Doctor. Anna. Guy Doctor. Well, as I said, I am not doing this conversation alone. I have in studio with me, he's a family medicine consultant, Dr. Kenneth Gyamfi, and he's here to have this very good conversation with me because when it comes to looking good and looking well, it's often interchanged. Yeah. People say, oh, you're looking good. So, I mean, that means everything is okay with you. Yeah. You're looking good, so there's nothing wrong with you. But they're two very different things. So we get into the conversation on what is the difference. In fact, let's define them. Okay. What is looking good and what is looking well?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. Right. I think it's very important, as you mentioned, that we make the distinct differences between the two. Okay. So looking good is all about aesthetics, you know, so when we say someone looks good, it's how they appear, you know, their six packs, you know, their physique, how they dress, and it is very one-dimensional, so just about appearance. However, looking well or being well on the other side, okay, talks a bit more than that. It talks about a functional state of someone. So how well is someone functioning? Okay, so I define, you know, looking well or wellness as actively and consciously pursuing lifestyle choices that lead to holistic health. Okay, you know, I've used a little bit of, you know, important words in there. I think the first one to sort of focus on to begin with is active and conscious lifestyle choices. Right. And then I think the second important word that I use there is holistic health. So holistic health is multidimensional, which touches on different aspects, you know, of wellness or different aspects of health, you know, that come into play here. So I think that's how I would try and then differentiate and then define holistic health.
But looking at how there's a very distinct, and I like that you say there's a very distinct difference between the two. Why is it that people, also because you're a physician, a family physician, so you know these things, why is it that people equate looking good to looking well? Okay.
So I think the first thing is probably down to misinformation. I think we live in a world these days that attention is put a lot more on someone's physical appearance. I think when we engage in healthy conversations or lifestyle, you know, lifestyle activities, it is all geared towards fitness, you know, towards how, you know, muscular someone looks, how lean someone looks, you know, but we don't pay much attention to the holistic picture. So everything that comes together to define what wellness is. So I think that is the reason why a lot of attention is paid on how someone looks rather than how well someone is.
But isn't it far, I don't want to say it's far-fetched because, listen, you wake up in the morning, you see somebody who is walking around, obviously looks active. The person is not crawling on your bed, so the person is not in the hospital. The person is eating well. On social media, we see them all the time. Someone is eating healthy, he's dressing, looking good. I mean, how would you sit and say this person does not look healthy? Because the person looks well. So is it far-fetched that we think this way?
So I wouldn't say it's far-fetched. As I said, I think that's what is put in front of us. And unfortunately, we are not properly informed on what wellness means. So in the beginning, I mentioned holistic health. So I'll try and break it down into the different aspects that come into here so that we get a bit of an understanding. So holistic health, if you're breaking it down, comprises of what we could say 5 pillars, okay, to holistic health, okay. So the first one is physical wellness. So a little bit of, you know, the how well someone looks or, you know, how good someone looks comes in there, but the difference here is how well someone is functioning. So there's 2 different things. You know, how someone looks is just appearance, aesthetics, nothing more. But how someone functions, you know, is a little bit more deeper. So it's how, you know, how someone moves, you know, how well they sleep, you know, how well they're able to engage in physical activity without becoming exhausted. So those are some of the important factors here.
Right.
The second one, okay, is mental and emotional states.
Right.
Okay, so how someone's mental state is, how their emotional state is. So are they free of stresses? Are they managing their stress well? You know, are they having any mood disorders? All of that comes into play there.
Right.
The third bit, okay, is very important, nutrition. So you mentioned a little bit about nutrition, someone eating well, but you know, there is a good definition to how well someone, you know, is you know, taken in their diet.
Right. So can a typical example be someone who has, let's say, bipolar disorder?
Yes.
Because you would see them on the road. They'll be fine with you.
Yes.
And then the next minute, they're throwing tantrums. So you're wondering, but this person looked fine a little bit. So can that also be considered as, you know, someone looking well, but innately the person is not okay?
Yeah, so that is very important. So we can't, you know, define, we can't say someone looks or someone is well if they have a mental health disorder that is not being managed or, you know, is not under control. So the example you've made is very, you know, is a very, very valid and very good example of the differentiation between someone looking well. So, you know, if someone has well-dressed, you know, walks in here, you might say, oh, that person is a muscular guy. But if that person has bipolar disorder that is not well managed, then that person is not well.
On that note, what are the common signs that can tell a person the difference, clear difference, that, okay, this person is looking good, but the person is not well?
Well, okay. So there are you know, many factors that you can look at, but I would break it down into a few, okay? So the first thing, which might not necessarily be obvious for you to see, is fatigue. Yeah, so you know, one of the ways that you can tell someone is not well, okay, is how much of, you know, energy they have to be able to engage in their daily activities. So that is one way of manifesting. The other way is mood disorders. So, you know, somebody who, you know, is depressed, who is anxious, can also be a sign. You know, there can be subtle signs like, you know, hair changes, nail changes. So, you know, somebody who's losing their hair, you know, can also be a subtle sign there. Sleep disturbance can also be very, you know, it's also a very telling sign. Okay, so someone who is not well normally has sleep problems. You know, things like snoring, you know, not sleeping well. So those are some of the signs that you can tell or can help us identify someone who is not well, who looks good.
Snoring?
Yes.
So someone would think that snoring is basically, because some of us grew up with parents who snore.
Yes.
Or a mother who is snoring. And we've been told that it's just very regular. I mean, it's probably how they're sleeping. If they sleep properly, they'll be okay. All these are signs of people who are not well.
Yes, it can be a sign of being unwell. Yes, it can be.
Wow.
Yes.
There are things, listen, if you're at home and you're wondering, they say people look well. Does looking well equate to looking good as in physically? Because we just heard that all of that is just aesthetics. So when you see somebody, you think the person looks really good, you never know what the person is dealing with physically, emotionally, and mentally. Well, you can send us your messages 055-157-5757. Let me know, have you met someone that looked really good, but the person was not well? Because this is a very big one. I don't think people really understand that this is something that can, you know, be true, or this is something that differentiates someone who's looking good and looking well. Now, let's get back to the looking good and looking well factor.
Sure.
Now, someone looks extremely good and is not mentally stable. Even we as human beings, sometimes we can't tell when there's a difference. So how can I, as an individual, know that, okay, today I look good, but mentally or physically I'm not okay? Yeah.
So, you know, I think if we look at the mental side of things, okay, you know, I always say that when it comes to wellness, it is, you know, lifestyle, you know, choices that we make. So if you say, for example, wake up in the morning and you're extremely stressed, okay, that can, you know, be telling mentally. You tend to, you know, maybe be overly, you know, anxious or, you know, think about things a lot more, you know, things that normally you wouldn't. So I think it's about recognizing from the start of your day how different you are today compared to what you were yesterday, because ultimately you know your body well than everybody does, or anyone else on the side does. So it's all about noticing, the changes, say today versus how you were yesterday, and perhaps a few things in your environment that is also impacting on how you feel.
All right, now let's look at lifestyle.
Yes.
3 things that I know every time doctors talk about: sleep, nutrition, and stress.
Yes.
How can these 3 factors affect your wellness?
Yes. So sleep, stress, and nutrition are 3 of some of the most important things that helps with internal function. Okay. So for example, sleep, if you don't get enough sleep, it directly influences your energy level.
Right.
So you wake up in the morning, you didn't have good enough sleep, you're most likely going to be fatigued. That means that you won't be able to move the way you want to, be able to perform in the way you do.
You want to.
Stress affects your mental state. So, if you're overly stressed, most likely you probably get a little bit anxious, you would overthink things, and that also, by affecting your mental state, also directly affects your physical performance. Right. Okay. Now, nutrition is very important. I think we all know that we need food to get energy, to be able to perform our daily duties. If we don't have a diet that is balanced and then also nutrient rich, that can affect our energy levels and then also affect the way that we function.
But Dr. Ken, I'm not cutting you.
Yeah.
Let's use, for instance, this work. Some of us wake up as early as 3 a.m.
Yes.
We get into our cars, get to work, let's say by 4:30, we're here. We're working through the day to, let's say, the next day. No, in fact, some people close at 9 p.m. And then we repeat the same cycle every day. On a regular day, how many hours of sleep are we supposed to have?
So good amount is 7 hours, 8 hours is good amount.
Okay.
I think that I would say averagely.
Okay.
Yeah,
so obviously you can see that we're not having a lot of sleep, but we're okay. And we still come to work saying we're fine. And then 2 weeks in or 3 weeks in, you hear that some colleague has a very serious problem or is not doing well. And then we ask, why is the person not doing well? Because this is something we do over and over and over again. And a lot of people can attest to the fact that we wake up really early. The camera guys too, because it's TV, right? These same hours that we're sleeping, and we're going around thinking that we're okay. How detriment can this be, or how can this affect us without us knowing?
I think the effect of not having good sleep can be quite significant. Okay. I think more often than not, we react to our health rather than be proactive to it. Okay. So I obviously appreciate that, your work, which then means that you have to wake up early. But what we have to do is we have to make that conscious effort to try and then maintain the amount of, sleep that we need.
But this is a job that is static.
Yes.
You can't do anything about it. You can't say you wake up at 5 because you have to be on air at 6 a.m., right? You wouldn't say that. Some of us are here till like 11 a.m. And not only this job, some people are working long hours and probably would get 4 hours of sleep. Now, somebody has been doing this for 30 years. When you talk to them, they'll tell you, "Shenyeme," right? So how can such a thing, because if someone has been able to do and follow this for about 30 years, why should we who have the energy now change that?
Okay, so I think the reason why we should look to change that is because, as I mentioned, okay, wellness is not only one-dimensional. Okay, yeah. So all these aspects needs to be looked at. As I said, I appreciate that. Sometimes with work restraints, it means that we are not, things that like sleep can become a little bit deprived and things, but I think what we have to do is we need to try and then, so for example, if you, wake up at 6 a.m., get home at say 11 p.m., when you get at 11 p.m., what steps do you take, to ensure that you can, finish your day and then go back to work? Because even if it's an hour, 2 hours more sleep, that in the long term, makes a huge difference. So I think the lifestyle choices, I think, is very important, that we have to proactively make those little changes, to be able to get to where we need to. Because sleep is very important, and so we need to definitely make, the proactive changes to be able to get enough sleep and, get the hours that we need.
Right. But you know that even in your field,
yes.
there are people, let's say those in the rural areas, they're
yes.
working overtime. I'm talking somebody's working from morning to morning.
Yes.
Because they're there alone. So people like this, how do they strategize? Like, how do they find time to take care of themselves?
I think every minute, every hour counts. Okay. Obviously in this case, it's a little bit tricky because they are in an environment where it's just them, I think if I found myself in that situation where I am being overworked and I'm not getting sleep, then I need to, speak to whoever is, overseeing the work that I'm doing to let them know, that because getting overworked would have an impact on your overall health. Whether you like it or not, that is what is going to happen. So I think, we need to try and as much as possible be able to, speak up about things like this and make sure that those changes are put in place to help us get what we need.
Nowadays, you see that when you hear that they said somebody was really healthy today, the next morning the person is there and you're asking, this person yesterday, and we hear a lot of those stories. Essie, I spoke to Essie yesterday. Essie and I were really good. Essie, we went for this. Even let me use my auntie as an example. So my auntie went for a funeral, spoke to my brother the night before. The next morning, my auntie is no more. And then we ask ourselves, so I want to ask, in such cases, what's wrong?
I think that in most cases is due to reactive nature to health, okay? Now, when I was listening the different aspects to holistic health, I talked about physical wellness, okay? I think what we tend to do most of the time is we tend to look after our health after we fall ill or after we notice changes in our body. So for example, high blood pressure, for example, has got no symptoms. So most of the times when patients come to my clinic, the only way we diagnose them is, by just checking their blood pressure. They don't come in, some of them don't even come in purposefully for their blood pressure. They come in for something else, and then by checking their blood pressure we notice that okay, your blood pressure is high, they don't have any symptoms, and then we start to talk to them about how we go about managing it. So I think the point that I'm trying to make is that in most cases in these situations that you've explained or you've made examples of, I think is because people have not done the required health screening that they need to have, because most illnesses go undiagnosed until it hits, a certain, to the point where, someone just collapses and dies, or someone has, a stroke, for example. But if we were taking the proactive measures to screen, for these things, then we would have been able to manage it to prevent such outcomes.
Right, but so now society has a certain caricature. They have an image in their head of what wellness looks like. When we see someone is well, not looking good, well, they have a mindset of what someone who looks well. Maybe the person is big, the person is not necessarily big, but has some flesh on them. Now, sometimes we see people who don't necessarily fit into this criteria of looking well, but they are okay. For such things, for such people, what is different?
So wellness or looking well is not aesthetics at all. Okay, it's function. So I think I mentioned in the beginning, it's function. So someone can have six packs and they might be fatigued, they might have poor sleep, they might be having, mental health issues, that person will not be considered as well. So, okay, there is no real look or image to wellness. Wellness has to be all the holistic, components that I explained coming together and aligning for us to say someone is well. So someone can be on the plus size and, for example, have good cardiovascular health, be able to, run a 2-mile, marathon and not necessarily get tired. That person would be considered healthier than somebody who has 6 packs and literally is gasping for air if they walk from here to here.
The other place,
So there's no real, image per se to wellness. Wellness is the complete package.
So for those for the people who go and get BBLs done, and come back and tell you, I was in the gym. Are they doing themselves good or harm?
Definitely harm. I think if the reason why you're doing it is to give a perception of being well or a perception of wellness, then they're definitely doing wrong, because that's not what wellness is. Wellness hasn't got an image or a physique per se. So in that context, I would say yes, they are doing.
So would you say that social media is slowly but surely taking the definition of wellness in a different way?
So I think the impact on, or the influence of social media on wellness, I think it's got both sides. There's definitely a positive side and most definitely a negative side. I think the positive side is that it has raised awareness. I think once we go on our social media, we definitely see a lot of fitness stuff, a lot of wellness stuff, people go into the gym, yoga, all of that. So that is positive. People become a little bit more health conscious and they want to look at their health. I think on the negative side is that there can be a lot of misinformation. Okay, social media is known for misinformation. People go, and people who are not experts, who don't have knowledge about certain topics, go and then they put things there and people consume. And I think that's the negative side of things. And I think the other negative side of things also come back to what we were having a conversation about just a minute ago, which is wellness or health has got a physique.
Right.
I think there is definitely overly, stressing on looking a certain way.
And it's a serious thing. I'm not even joking.
Serious.
Like, I think nowadays, looking skinny is the new trend. I'm not lying. Like, you'd see celebrities who probably a few months ago had some flesh. Now they are literally skinny. And so you're sitting down and you're asking yourself, do I have to look skinny to be healthy? Is that wellness? No, it's not. So looking skinny has really nothing to do with wellness. So if we even want to look at, body shape or size, then we need to look at what the exact data is. So for example, something like a BMI, which is a proportion of your weight to your height. And that tells us if somebody has an ideal body weight or not. But that is just a little tiny part of wellness. That is just the physical aspects. Do you understand what I mean? So no, skinny is not, fit or is not necessarily well. Right.
Okay. It's definitely more than that.
Because people are getting, I don't know if you've also heard that there's a new trend, and I'm going to ask for all the girls because I need people out there to understand that you don't have to look a certain type of way. And like you said, once again, physically, that's aesthetic.
Yes.
Your emotional and what you're taking into your body is what matters. Someone is taking Ozempic. There's another one. Is it Mounjaro?
Mounjaro, yeah.
There are Mounjaro shots. And people are taking these things to look a certain type of way.
Yes.
Doctor,
yes.
People are watching you from home.
Yes.
Why shouldn't we be involving ourselves in such things?
Okay. So, Ozempic and Mounjaro in itself isn't bad. Okay. They have roles they play in weight loss. Actually, Ozempic is even used in managing diabetes. So, in itself is not bad. I think the way we use it, or some people use it, is where the problem is. I think one of the issues maybe with people these days is they actually tend to, perform certain health treatments without necessarily, consulting a health professional.
Because I hear that Ozempic is naturally or ideally it is for persons who have diabetes.
So it is used for treatment of diabetes.
Right.
It can also be used for treatment of weight loss.
Okay.
It can be for weight gain. So it can be used as a weight loss medication.
Okay.
But it needs to be used with the guidance of a health professional.
Okay.
So what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't just go to the market and find Ozempic and then start injecting, because before you start using Ozempic, you need to have certain checks. So you need to have your BMI done, blood test, all of those things done, and actually, to even use Ozempic, you need to have some lifestyle element to it. So your diet, exercise, all of that should be used in combination. It shouldn't be used just alone as a way of trying to lose weight. Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's, you know, that's what I have to say with regards to Ozempic.
So I think in general, you're just saying that we should be careful and we should have doctors' green light before we go to, because I'm telling you on TikTok right now, when you open it and you search Ozempic, you find about 555 people selling these same products, and they're not doctors.
Yes.
They're just people operating from home and telling you, oh, I have Ozempic, so if you're ready, come. And nobody gives us these information. Now, doctor, there's a picture behind me.
Yes.
Who looks good and who looks well?
Wow, it's very difficult to tell. They both look good. I mean, they both have got smiles on their faces, so you could say maybe not too stressed. I mean, as I said, is difficult to say. If I were to, you know, sort of have to choose, I would say he looks good because he is, you know, just aesthetics-wise, he's, you know, dressed well, you know, he's got his glasses on, you know, nice suit on. But it's very difficult for me to, you know, tell if this person is well or not, because, as I said, wellness hasn't got an image to it, okay? It looks good. I think she probably looks good, you know, but wellness is holistic, you know, so, you know, are they both, you know, free of any mental illness? Are they free of any diseases or illness? I think it's difficult to say, but if you want to, you know, so differentiate, you can say this one looks good and this, you know, perhaps, looks well.
I think also, so you can see on social, when we asked AI, they tell us that the woman looks well and the guy looks good. Also because sometimes we've learned that people are able to mask whatever they're going through with how they dress. So for instance, if I'm even having an extremely difficult day, I'm about to sit on TV, I cannot frown. Right? I cannot be angry. I can show the world that someone pissed me off a few minutes ago. That's the nature of the job. So I'm looking good right now, but in my head, you don't know what I may be going through. Absolutely. So I think that is what AI did say. And is this a common thing people do? Do people mask their real intentions or feelings or emotions?
Absolutely. I think, yes, a few reasons for that. There's a lot of focus on how someone looks, you know, how well they look, you know, how good they appear aesthetically. And then also, I think there is a huge stigma around being vulnerable about your emotional or mental state. People don't like to open up about how, you know, or what struggles they are going through mentally. And so it is the easiest way out is to try a mask, to put a facade on, to put a face on of looking good or, you know, being well, when in fact that's not the case.
Now, once again, if you're home, this is your time to send us all your questions. If there's a question you've been wondering to ask, please do well to ask. The number 055-157-5757. Again, 055-157-5757. Do you have any questions to ask? Okay, so someone has a question. Please pass him the microphone so he can ask, and then we go. All right.
All right.
Yes, Chief.
Doc, so I have a question about the sleeping pattern.
About what, sorry?
The sleeping pattern.
Sleeping pattern, yes.
So let's say a person does sleep around like for 5-6 hours, it doesn't sleep early, and wakes up around like 5 to 6. That means the pattern doesn't add up to the 7 hours of good sleep.
Yes.
And decides to take another extra sleep, like maybe a nap.
Yes.
Does it make it like okay? That's
yes, I think it does. And the reason why I'm saying that is, ultimately, we want to get the amount that we need. Okay, so if your you know, schedule is such that you're not able to maintain, you know, 8 straight hours, but sometime within the day you can get, you know, 2 hours where you can rest, I think that, you know, is positively, you know, impactful or positive in that sense. So I think, yes, if 2 hours during the day is what you can get in addition to the 6 hours, you know, then I think that's absolutely fine. Most important is that it contributes to your overall, you know, quality of life and your overall wellness, okay? Means you have a little bit more energy for you to carry on your day and then perform your activities, then absolutely, that's absolutely fine.
So you can carry forward your sleep?
Not necessarily carry forward. I mean, like within the day, yes.
Right.
Okay. Obviously, for every 24-hour period, this is what you need. So if you get 6 hours throughout the night, and in the day you can get 2 hours where you can rest and sleep, then absolutely why?
Even if it's not 2 hours, do power naps count? Because sometimes a little 20 minutes keeps you up and going.
It does. You know, if it's giving you rest, you know, then absolutely fine. No issues with it.
Do we have any more? Do we have some more? Okay. Someone says that they take coffee every morning and that's how they become awake. And that's how their day starts. But we've also read that caffeine has its ups and downs. So for someone who does that, how can they change from that? And is it even a good practice?
So overly consumption of caffeine is not good. Okay. You know, I think taking, you know, a cup a day is probably okay. You know, it doesn't, I don't think it would cause too much of an issue. But I think if we become dependent on it, if it feels like we can't start our day without taking it, if it feels like we need to take it continuously throughout the day to go, then that can become an issue because then you can then start to look at it from, you know, a point of view of maybe a little bit of dependence there. So I think if you consume it in moderate amounts, then it's absolutely fine, but it shouldn't be overconsumption, or it shouldn't be that you need it to get going.
Now, I also heard a few weeks back, in fact, my auntie says this all the time. She says when you wake up, you don't get up immediately, like take some time, dilly-dally on the bed, move your, but most of the time, I'm waking up I wish I could play my alarm for you. It's like an ambulance. Because that's the only time, that's how I wake up, right? So is it true? And how can this affect us? Because we are told again that you're sleeping, don't just get up, take some time. How true is that?
I mean, I don't think there is any real negative science to it. The way I see it, or I can kind of appreciate that, is, you know, taking, you know, a minute or two to stretch. You know, it helps just in terms of overall wellness, or, you know, overall sort of mental states, just as a way of getting yourself going and then just starting your day. So you can kind of link it a little bit with, say, for example, yoga, for example. You know, it is just a way of, you know, just getting you in the right mental state, or, you know, in the right way to sort of get up and start your day.
So you can wake up and nothing will happen to you? I
don't necessarily think so. But if you can spend, you know, a minute or two to stretch, you know, to, you know, a few breaths, deep breaths, you know, I think it would definitely make a difference.
Now, I hear that people think that it's only rich people who practice that. And some people even say that, yes. Some people also say that it's demonic. When you wake up, it's like you're calling the demons before you. How true is that one too?
So I don't think that's true. That's absolutely false. So I'm sure later on we will talk a little bit more about Liver Festival. Okay, but I think this question in particular is the important reason why people should attend Liver Festival, because it is, you know, yoga can be for everybody. You know, there's no real.
It's not for the rich.
It's not for the rich. You know, it's not for the poor. You know, it's an art, or is an act of, you know, being in a good mental state. So
I'll tell you for free, because I think the last year somewhere I said I was going to do yoga. I was going to actively do that. And then I searched on the internet or on TikTok, and all the girls that were doing yoga, the aesthetic, they had shoes, and you have to have a mat, and you have to go for a class. And I'm like, I thought yoga is something you can do in the comfort of your home. So that's why I came back to social media, saying that probably social media has glorified what these things look like, and that's why sometimes we can blame people for these assumptions they make. Well, I have a message. This one says, hi, it's me, Rahina, watching you at home. What's the difference between looking well and looking good? Okay, so we've answered that, but I'm sure she just joined the conversation, so please let's go through that quickly.
Okay, so looking good, looking well. So looking good is aesthetics, physical appearance, nothing more to it. Looking well is more holistic. So, you know, is the person physically sound, mentally sound, emotionally sound, is nutrition good? So that's basically the two differences.
Right. Yeah. And this one says, hello, doctor, please, I have lower back pain. I've been to the hospital, but it still hurts. What can I do, please?
They need to go and see a health professional.
Right.
Okay, because there are so many reasons why someone can have back pain, you know, from simple things like muscle-related issues to even more serious things. So I think, you know, this is important in the context of being proactive about your health. Okay, so what we shouldn't do is to sit at home and wait for our symptoms to, you know, continue getting, you know, worse before we seek professional advice or professional help. Immediately you feel a symptom, you should contact a doctor. Immediately you feel a symptom, you should contact a doctor, because, you know, sometimes it is easier to manage conditions or illnesses when it is diagnosed early, okay, than when we leave it way too late, and then it becomes a bit complicated to, you know, to deal with.
So in general, early detection
is very, very important.
This one says, good afternoon, Changes. I'm watching you live from Accra, Newtown. I really love the conversation because sometimes I am okay and sometimes I am mad at myself. I don't know the reason. Please, can you ask doctor for me about my problem? Thank you. So the person says sometimes they're very okay. Yeah. Sometimes they're extremely mad at themselves. What does the person do? So
I would say that this can be a little bit of an opening into how someone's, you know, emotional regulation is.
Right.
Certainly, this needs a little bit more diving into to know why that person is going through that, or to perhaps try and find out if there is any, you know, mental health issue or emotional, you know, dysregulation or something of that sort. So I would say that, yeah, that person needs to, again, see a healthcare professional so that, you know, we can definitely look into it and see if there is something worth looking into, or if there are perhaps some mood issues that we need to address.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it happens to some of us too. Not extremely mad, but sometimes you'll be okay. Next minute, you're just gone off. And then you wonder, what is it?
It does. As I said, it can be an opening, but it doesn't always mean that there is a mental health issue, for example. I think our mood is never the same throughout the day. You know, someone can go through a stressful situation, or someone can even do something to make you mad. That in itself is normal, okay, within. But if it is a persistent issue that is going and you can't seem to put your hand on the reason why that is happening, then you should see a health professional.
See a health professional. This one says, please, doctor, I am hypertensive, but I hardly sleep. In the night, I only sleep for 2 hours, and during the day, I'm very busy to rest. Kindly advise me. Thank you, doctor. So the person is hypertensive. What does hypertensivity mean? So
hypertensive basically means that person has got high blood pressure.
Okay.
So when you were diagnosed with hypertension, then it means your blood pressure is persistently high.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what hypertension.
But the person says they only sleep for 2 hours, and in the day he or she is too busy to even find time to rest.
So I think the bit with the question where, you know, maybe needs a little bit clarification is the person saying that the sleep is impacting on their hypertension or not? So I think that needs a bit looking.
So please clarify. Clarify. Let's know if the
if the person is asking that, okay, because I'm not sleeping well is impacting my blood pressure, or, you know, so that we can know exactly, you know, what it is.
Tell you. Okay, so please ask the question well, okay? This one says, thank you so much for answering my question. Doctor, please, I'm pregnant, 2 months and 3 weeks. Please, can I take paracetamol? Okay, 6 times a day. Sister, 6 tabs. 6 tabs a day. Wow. So the person wants to know.
Okay, so this is a very medical question. Okay. So I say it's a very medical question. Is the person has put on there they are pregnant. I don't really know this, you know, I don't really know the person. I don't know what their health background is. Paracetamol is considered safe in pregnancy. However, even within pregnancy, there are certain conditions that can impact the use of paracetamol. So I think if that person has a medical doctor who knows about their history, then it'll probably be, you know, a good person to get that detailed kind of question from. But what I would say is paracetamol is genuinely considered safe. If someone is pregnant and they haven't got any health issues that impact on their ability to have paracetamol, then it shouldn't be, a problem. And just in general, every adult person with ideal body weight can take up to 8 tablets of paracetamol a day without causing any problems. Okay.
Well, now you have a question. Oh, one more and then we can go. Okay.
Doc, this question is quite simple.
Okay.
So, would you say it's advisable for once in a human being to take their regular drugs, like the paracetamols and drugs, like regularly, like just once in a while, for like boosting your immune system and stuff like that? Is it advisable to do that?
So paracetamol really has no impact on your immune system. Paracetamol is basically a pain relief, and that's what it is. If you have a headache in a day, then that's fine. It's okay for you to take paracetamol. But if you're taking paracetamol persistently, so every day because you have a headache, then it's probably a good idea for you to go and see a healthcare professional, because that might be an indication of something more going on, because paracetamol is just a pain relief. Okay, so I'll probably say regular paracetamol without seeing a healthcare professional is probably not a good idea.
It's probably not a good idea. Okay, so this one says, she's come back to answer. It says, my doctor advised me to take 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening. That's the reason why I'm asking. So
so I think if your doctor has advised, so 2 tablets 3 times a day of paracetamol is fine.
Right.
It's not a problem. So I'm sure if the doctor has advised that she takes it, then I'm sure it's probably
right. This one says, please, I'm on BP drugs, but occasionally I feel dizzy and consistent headaches. I'm 44 years and I'm a female, but I hardly sleep.
Okay. So there are certain blood pressure medication that can cause these symptoms that a patient is, reporting.
Right.
Also, if blood pressure is not well controlled, can also cause feeling dizzy and headaches. So I think at the moment it's very difficult for me to tell the reason why. There are a few reasons. So again, comes down to going to see a healthcare professional.
So, mommy, wherever you are, please go see a doctor so they can tell you, because for your age and how you cannot sleep, there could be something wrong with you. So go see the doctor. But yes, this has been a very good one. I think you guys should put your hands together. Okay. Now let's get into your event.
Yes.
First of all, you're a host. This is a festival, a wellness festival. It's something that we don't see in Ghana. We don't hear about it. Have you even heard of it before? I've never heard of a wellness festival.
Yes.
Why did we put this together? Tell me about it.
Right, so I'm very passionate about primary care or preventative health care, okay? And I think that it's about time we not only create the awareness, but educate people and give them the tools for them to proactively take care of their health, okay? And so that was basically the foundation of Live Well Festival. What we wanted to do is to bring all the aspects of wellness that we've talked about all on one platform.
Right.
So nutrition, mental health, physical health, exercise, but also to make it fun, so to bring in a little few activities that people can come, and enjoy, some fitness, challenges, and things like that. So make it fun, but in a way that is informative, is, educative, and also is practical. Very, very important, because I want people to be able to come to a space where they can take something with them and then add it to their daily daily living. As I mentioned from the beginning, it is conscious, active lifestyle choices. That's what wellness is about.
Right.
So it's every day thinking about, what can I do? What is the little thing that I can add to my day-to-day that is, going towards my, wellness.
Right.
So that is what Live Well Festival is about. Free of charge, everybody is welcome to come. And also, very importantly, we are doing free health screening there. Okay. As I mentioned, early detection is very important.
Very important.
And most illnesses in the early stages don't show any signs and symptoms. So I think we need to get into, get into the mindset of doing regular checks, so that we can detect all these illnesses early.
That's impressive. Now, when is it happening? Where is it happening?
Yes.
And what time should we be there?
So it is happening this Saturday, which is 4th of April.
Okay.
And it is at the University of Ghana, Legon poolside.
Okay.
So that's where it's happening.
Okay.
The event starts at 7, but there is a health walk that is leading to the actual opening of the event. So I encourage every one to join. It will be an hour. We're going to walk, have fun. There will be music. So just come. It's free of charge. Okay, free. You don't have to pay anything. Just come. Get free screening and then engage in the activities.
What time are we converging for the walk? And is it 7 p.m. or 7 a.m.? Let's be specific because people and time.
So it's 7 a.m. Okay, that's when the the event space opens up, and then converging will be from 6 a.m. Is where we converge for the health walk to 7 a.m. So 6 a.m. is when we converge. Then we do the walk from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then we basically go in and we start the activity.
Okay, so please, once again, clarify. It's not 7 p.m. It is 7 a.m. At 6 a.m. we converge. We do 1 hour of walk. We come back and we have all the fun. And also still, we are keeping ourselves healthy and well. Also, the gym is close by. Will we be doing anything in the gym?
So no, not in the gym, but the activities that we do in the gym would be, on the premises of where the activity is going on, and it's running from 7 to 4 p.m.
Okay.
They're very, interesting activities that we have, for people. There will be, some talks on nutrition. We're looking to do, and we're also engaging some wellness brands. So if anyone has a wellness product that they feel that people can benefit from a wellness point of view, then they are more than welcome to contact us. But we are engaging with some wellness brands as well.
Right. Please put the number out there because I need people to know. I'm sure that after this interview, there will be a lot of wellness brands that will want to work with you.
Okay.
So please put your contact out there and on social media. Where can we find you?
Let me just find the number.
While you do that, once again, we are converging this Saturday, 4th of April, University of Ghana, the pool area. If you get to the place, in fact, when you get to Okponglu, ask them. They'll show you. It's not far from there. Okay. And so go and enjoy yourself. Let's be well. Once again, looking good does not equate looking well. They're two different things, but they can both be done at the same time. So go and find your health and your wellness. Do we have the information?
We do have the number now. So the number to call is 050 55 09 712.
Again.
Yes, so 050 55 09 712.
Okay, please take it again, but slower.
Okay. 050 550 9712.
Okay, so please, that's the number to call. My studio audience and I will be there because, listen, if somebody came to talk about party, they would have been there.
I know.
So now that this is a wellness party and we've not heard about it before, I'm bringing each and every one of them to the studio. So look at their faces very well.
And we are, technically we are partying because there will be music. There'll be music.
Right.
We'll be dancing, we'll be shaking our bodies, but we're doing it towards our health and our wellness. Okay, so come, let's party.
Right, so come, let's party. Is there a dress code?
No, there's no dress code. Obviously, we are doing wellness and fitness.
Wear.
So active wear.
Right. Come in your active wear. Come and look extremely good whilst working on your health. It's very important. Your health is your wealth, and we need you to be as healthy as possible. Dr. Ken, thank you for joining me in studio. I think we should put our hands together. And you at home who have sent us messages, we see you. Unfortunately, we couldn't answer all your questions, but there are so many more conversations that we'll be having right here on Changes. That's why you shouldn't tune off. Before we go, today is the 1st of April, and my grandma just turned 98. So, Eunice Adachi, I love you. You have lived with us for a very long time, and I wish, anytime I talk about you, I get very emotional. I love, love, love you. I want to say long life, but you're already 98, so I feel asking for long life is putting you through a lot, but I love you. Your children love you. Adimla Shadi, Femi Dupe, your own kids, they adore you. I adore you. So happy birthday, Grandma. Mwah.